What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Atheist Roundtable. And again, tonight we have another TART live debate, and I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this one. We're going to have a couple of great guests with us tonight that we've had a subject that we've been exchanging emails and getting everything lined up. It took us a couple weeks to get everything ready to rock and roll, but it is time. So if we want to go ahead and bring our guests here on screen that will be part of the debate tonight, that would be awesome. And all those that have already been in the chat waiting, thank you so much, Artie, for being here tonight. And this is going to be a great topic, great discussion. And one thing I anticipate with these two gentlemen involved, it's going to be a great conversation, but it's going to be one that's peaceful and calm, but yet informative at the same time. So I'll go ahead and bring the two gentlemen on the screen here. So Randolph from Canada, how are you feeling, sir?
Oh, really good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm glad that when you came on for your first debate here, TART Live, that you wore your Kent Hovind shirt. So we definitely appreciate that, and I see. Usually that means you're trying to keep up with my wardrobe, so I appreciate that because I got my dad gear on tonight because I had to go run and get my kids and all that. So I appreciate your representing.
You're a distinct act to follow.
I like the way you said that. So real quick, Randolph, tell our viewers here up top a little bit about you and then where they can find you, content, anything like that.
Oh, great. Yes. Well, I am the founding president of the Canadian Atheists, a nationwide organization that strives to push back against vilification of atheists and vilification of atheism. And we're also making efforts to normalize atheism in Canadian society, which we hope will also influence the rest of the world to normalize it throughout, because we believe that it is normal to not believe things. And you can find out more about the Canadian Atheists at www.canadianatheists.ca. You can also find me on Twitter at my Twitter handle is Randolph828, and that's Randolph spelled with an F. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/Randolf Richardson, all spelled out, no spaces or anything. And again, Randolph spelled with an F. Thank you very much for having me on your program.
No, I appreciate you being here, and I want to commend you for what you're doing in Canada as far as, I always like to say, turning up the volume on the skeptic atheist voice, but I'm sure that's somewhat hindered or set back a little bit because Neil's involved, right?
No, actually, I gotta call you out on this. You're wrong about that. Neil's actually been a very helpful part of all this.
Absolutely.
Also, we've been working on a new program that we're going to be doing a live call-in show called True North Talk, and we have some videos of the renovations that we've been working on together. And that one's at truenorthtalk.ca for anybody who's interested. There's a link to the YouTube channel there, and you can see the progress. We're going to be doing some more tomorrow, it looks like.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm totally kidding about Neil. Neil's he has a big voice for the atheist community, and him and I like to trade jabs there. So
he's also got an important voice, because I think those deconversion stories that he's putting up really are helpful to a lot of people to see that this is quite a normal thing to do, to think for yourself and to freely choose for yourself whether you're religious.
Absolutely. And Randolph, thanks again for joining us. And our next guest here with us tonight, the other side of the debate here, Gavin, representing the Christian side of the argument, all the way from New Zealand. And before I have Gavin share a little bit about him for the listeners and the viewers, just know that when you're streaming all the way from New Zealand, there's going to be a little bit of a delay, so don't think that they're talking over each other or anything like that. We're going to try to be cognizant of that. But Gavin, you're very, very active in our comment sections, and we appreciate that. We love the conversations we have with you. Thanks for being with us. How are you tonight, sir?
Shalom. Hi, Austin. I'm doing way, way better than I actually deserve. Really looking forward to having a good discussion with Randolph. I'm hoping it's going to be the first of many. because I really respect Randolph. I respect you. I actually respect your channel a lot. Very, very professional. So I'm very excited about the upcoming debate.
Very good. Very good. And Gavin, is there anything that you want to share with us as far as where people can find any of your debates, content, anything like that before we jump in?
No, not really, Austin. Everything that Randolph said, I haven't got. I don't have a YouTube channel or anything like that. We're pretty primitive down here at the bottom of the earth.
Okay, not a problem. Bottom line is we're glad you're at TART tonight, and we're gonna get things kickstarted for everybody that's listening and watching right now. Kind of give you the format for the night, and then we'll jump into it and get this party started. So we'll start off with 10-minute opening statements. I'll have a timer going. Then we'll go into 10-minute cross examinations. And then we'll go for about a half hour or so with a just open general discussion about the topic, and then 5-minute closing statements. And if we have time, we'll do an open Q&A from the viewers and the listeners at the end. And if it does get messy and I need to jump in and get the gloves out, I will do it, gentlemen. No, I'm just kidding. But I expect it'll be a great discussion. And if you don't know, the topic for tonight is God a moral monster? That's our topic for tonight. And Randolph, I know you were going first, so I will jump off here, let you guys get to it, and I will start before. Sorry, I did have it pulled up here. Get my stopwatch out here. As soon as you start talking, Randolph, I will start the timer.
Thank you. Okay. So with this topic is questioning the morality of the Christian God. And my feeling on it is that the Christian God is not moral. What we do know about this God comes from the Bible. Of course, there are different translations of the Bible available, but they mostly say generally more or less the same things. We'll start with a few of the major transgressions that I do have a problem with, that I do consider to be immoral. The global flood is probably one of the biggest ones that people know about in the story. Killing nearly all life on the planet, I consider to be immoral. Imagine what it would be like to drown. The vast majority of babies, children, adults, teenagers, and all the animals and other life as well, not being able to breathe, and ending up, their life ends this way. This is not only just a matter of killing off innocent life, and some who are guilty of crimes too, no doubt, but you're basically painting all life on the planet nearly with the same brush and just killing them all. It's also a very cruel way to go about killing people, which I think adds to the immoral aspect of this. And as I understand it, the justification for this was because there were some humans that were not behaving properly, as the story goes. Another point, so that would be point one, the global flood. Point two would be vicarious redemption by human sacrifice. The point of the punishment-based system that was in place, according to the Bible, is that those who've committed transgressions, committed crimes, need to be punished. But then, when Jesus apparently was died for everybody's sins, he absolved them of their sins and took away the punishment aspect. Of course, this doesn't actually absolve people of their crimes. It just gives them an easy way to get a pass and not have to be held accountable for it. That, again, is immoral in, I guess, or unethical in the eyes of the law. Point number three, God did order, apparently, a fellow named Abraham to kill his own son, Isaac. And I consider child abuse to be immoral, and that is what that is. Sadly, the Bible doesn't seem to reflect on the psychological ramifications on Isaac after enduring such a terrible, horrific experience, and the cruelty with that. And then the fourth point, pregnancy. Now, with God being omniscient, knowing everything, and omnipotent, having full power to do anything, the question of why were women designed by this God to endure excruciating pain when giving birth to children is an important question to ask in this. I'd like to know why things weren't designed differently to make things easier and to make things a lot less painful. Why should women have to endure this? These points all seem to hinge on including cruelty, except for the vicarious redemption one. There are probably many, many more examples I could go into, but I think people generally get the idea. And I think these four are probably good ones to cover and to look at as, is this a good example of what we should consider an example of morality and whatnot. As the Christian God is very often held to be this pillar example, or Jesus is this pillar example, and then Jesus is said to be God, one and the same. It all seems to me that a much better approach to use is to consider not the golden rule, which has problems of its own, but the veil of ignorance from John Rawls, who wrote in his book A Theory of Justice about how laws could be formulated to be fair to everyone. So it is a bit of a thought experiment, but it can be used in moral determination as well. And I do strive to do this. I'm not saying that my sense of morality is the right one to follow, but I'm certainly not impressed with the one that is presented by Christianity. There doesn't seem to be consideration that we do see with John Rawls' system and the veil of ignorance. And the idea with this is that you try to, as a lawmaker, what you would do, for example, is to consider how your laws would affect different people in society. And you go with this assumption for this thought exercise this thought experiment, that you would be randomly placed in society, and you don't know what your role would be. You don't know what your educational background would be. You don't know what your sex is. You don't know what your race would be. You don't know all these different things. You don't know if you'd be born with some diseases. And so the idea is that you think about all these different things when you're making a law, so that the law can be fair to the maximum number of people possible, preferably everyone. And it would be very nice, I think, if the morality that was presented by Christianity was doing just this, because I think things would be a lot better, and it would be easier to actually make a case for God being moral. Thank you very much.
All right, very good. Thank you, Randolph. And next, we will get to Gavin here, and he is going to argue the position that God is not a moral monster. So, Gavin, let me reset the timer here.
How much time did I take?
It was a little over 7 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Gavin, as soon as you start speaking, sir, I will start the clock.
Sure. Thanks, Randolph. Great opening. So I'm going to start off with four well-known quotes from four well-known and notable people. George Washington said, "It's impossible to rightly govern the world without God and the Bible." Thomas Jefferson wrote, "The Bible is the cornerstone of liberty. Students' perusal of this sacred volume will make us better citizens, better fathers, and better husbands." Andrew Jackson said, "That book, the Bible, is the rock on which a republic rests." And the famous General Ulysses S. Grant said, hold fast to the Bible. To the influences of this book, we are indebted for all the progress made in true civilization, and to this we must look as our guide in the future. Great quotes. So, circa 400 BC, Plato and Aristotle recognized that there are three major transcendental desires There's actually more, but I'm only going to focus on these three. Actually, just one for the sake of the debate. Saint Augustine, and St. Thomas Aquinas and many other philosophers have spoken of the same desires throughout the centuries. So what are these transcendental desires? They are our intrinsic desires for perfect and unconditional truth, perfect and unconditional love, and most importantly, and for the purposes of the debate with Randall, perfect and unconditional justice and goodness. So the argument concerning our desire for perfect justice and goodness can be set out in the following 4 steps. So step number 1 is we have the ability to notice imperfection in justice and goodness in both ourselves and others. In virtually every conceivable context, we not only notice unfairness and evil in individual people, but also in virtually every organisation and institution. We can see unfairness in economic systems, judicial systems, educational systems, cultural institutions, and so forth. Our capacity to recognise imperfection in justice and goodness seems to know no limits. For example, little children have the ability to recognise unfairness in their parents and teachers, even though their parents and teachers probably did not teach them either formally or informally how to do so. Number 2, how can we notice virtually every imperfection in the justice and goodness of others, ourselves, organisations, institutions, systems, and societies endlessly if we do not have some idea of what perfect justice and goodness would be like? Stated the other way around, if we had no sense of perfect justice and goodness, we would never notice any imperfection in justice and goodness. We would simply count survival of the fittest as our lot in life. Number 3, once again, we must ask, what could be the source of our awareness of what perfect justice and goodness would look like? The source of this awareness cannot be any kind of justice and goodness we have experienced in the outside world. Again, it is precisely this justice and goodness that causes us to recognize the imperfection in it. This has led many philosophers to believe the only possible source of our awareness and of what perfect justice and goodness would be like is perfect justice and goodness itself. So finally, number 4. So what is perfect justice and goodness? According to Washington, Jefferson, Jackson, Grant, and by far the majority of scientists working at elite research institutions today, that perfect justice and goodness is the true perfect Christian God. What can we conclude from this? If the above reasoning is correct, then God is not only perfect truth and perfect love, he's also perfect justice and goodness. Furthermore, for the sake of our debate, he is present to our consciousness as perfect justice and goodness, creating a horizon of perfect justice and goodness, which incites us to strive for even greater forms of justice and goodness in ourselves, others, organizations, institutions, laws, ideals, government, culture, and every other aspect of human endeavor. Now, you draw the conclusion. What does this say about who God is and how he is present to our consciousness? How do our transcendental desires provide proof that God exists? If the reasoning that I've spoken about is correct, then God is not only the unique, unrestricted reality who is the cause of everything else, he's also the perfect truth, the perfect love, and the perfect justice and the perfect goodness. Furthermore, he is present to our consciousness and the source of our awareness of perfect truth, love, justice, and goodness. And as such, he incites us to creatively he incites us to creativity in every form of human endeavor and the striving for greater truth, love, justice, and goodness. God not only gives us a transcendent soul manifest in the evidence of near-death experiences, for example, he also fills our soul with the horizon of his perfection, which causes us to be everything that we are, and that is the Imago Dei, otherwise known as the image of God himself. Now, let's be a bit rational about this, because I'm talking about God's perfect justice and goodness, but we know there is evil and suffering in the world. There's no simple answer to the problem of suffering, but there are a few suggestions. Sometimes we suffer because the laws of nature are fixed and cause certain things to happen. Sometimes we suffer because we have bad luck. Other times we have no one to blame but ourselves. Sometimes we are the authors of our own misfortune and simply suffer for the consequences of our actions. Sometimes we suffer the consequences of other people's bad behavior. We may be the innocent victims of a rapist or an attacker or a murderer, or we may simply be at the receiving end of someone's greed or jealousy or bigotry. If it's true that God does not oppose human free will, which I believe he doesn't, then bad things will happen because some people choose to do wrong. Sometimes too, people suffer because justice demands that they are being punished for the wrongs they've done. Sometimes we suffer because the world we live in is imperfect, because it's not the way it's supposed to be. And sometimes suffering has no explanation. Sometimes suffering seems meaningless, and we don't know why things happen the way they do. Sometimes we can only sit in silence, on this side of eternity at least. Maybe the suffering that we experience is our own fault, or the fault of someone else, or the punishment of God, or is the will of God. Whatever the explanation, this is what Christians know. They know that Roman cross 2020 odd years ago teaches us that God isn't removed from suffering. He knows what we feel when we suffer. He knows the anguish, the physical pain, the mental pain, the emotional suffering. So God actually suffers with us. And because he suffers with us, he offers us his love and his compassion, and hopefully the strength to overcome. And with that, I yield my time to my learned opponent.
Very good. Great opening dialogue there, gentlemen, and very much appreciate it. And I just wanted to plug real quick for the chat, just a couple things here. One, here at the Atheist Roundtable, we 100% endorse and support healthy, peaceful, friendly dialogue. We can completely disagree on what we believe in, but we can attack the belief. We're not going to attack individuals. So just know we don't do that here. So that's that.
And I just wanted to mention I am seeing the comments as they are put up on the screen. Thank you, everybody.
And we're here to defend and not to sound over the top, but defend and protect anybody that's going to be on our platform, regardless of their beliefs. So that's not going to be accepted here. Then on the lighter side, just know that the super chats are active. So if you want those popped up and on the screen, and some little shout outs, that is active. And I know we have quite a few people in here listening. So thank you so much for being a part of the debate tonight. And we'll get on to the next portion here. And that will be the cross examinations. And Randolph, if you, since you opened it up, if you want to go first in your 10-minute cross examination, we'll let you go first there. And I will start the clock as soon as you start.
Okay, thank you. All right, there were a number of points made by Gavin. I didn't get to make complete notes. I caught the first quote that he said was from George Washington, that it's impossible to run a government or the world without God. I hope I'm paraphrasing it correctly. I would like to know more about that, because I'm not convinced that that's the case. From what I can see, it looks like we're running without a God. I'm not aware of any contact from this God. The other things he mentioned were the transcendental desires. Mentioned Thomas Aquinas and other philosophers, and Thomas Aquinas is one who I abhor, because Thomas Aquinas was petitioning governments to put all atheists to death. So he was rather genocidal in his thinking, or at least mass murder type. So I don't regard Thomas Aquinas as a very healthy philosopher to follow or to pay any respect to. You also mentioned perfect and unconditional justice and goodness, which is an interesting thing to be presenting as part of your God, when your God seems to be vengeful and quite emotional in his decisions at times. I would think that a perfect justice system would not include making decisions that are vengeful and trying to be impartial rather than making decisions emotionally. So I think that one can be easily discarded. But I guess my main question to you right now is so I'll ask you, and you can answer after I finish going through a few of these other points. The first question is, why do you think, since you quoted George Washington, that you think it's impossible to run a government without God or to run a world without God? You also mentioned about this perfect justice and goodness. You referred to some scientists explaining it, and I'm curious as to why that would be necessary if God is the ultimate authority. Why not just refer to God? You mentioned God is the perfect truth, the perfect justice, and the perfect goodness. If it is true that your God is the perfect truth, for example, why is there a need for multiple translations of the Bible in English? Shouldn't just one version of the English Bible be sufficient? Or is there a problem with all the others and there's only one that's correct? And if that's the case, why is that one correct and the others are wrong? And how do you know that? You mentioned about evil and suffering in the world. And you say there's no perfect answer. But sometimes we suffer because of the laws of nature, bad luck, or that we're the authors of our own misfortunes and other people's bad behaviors, attack, rape, murder, bigotry, and its various forms, and so on. And I don't disagree with this. I think that this is a normal part of life. But then you went on to talk about how sometimes we suffer because the world is not the way it's supposed to be. So I'd like to know, another question for you here is, how is the world supposed to be? That's a pretty big question, because I'm assuming that you have some idea in mind for how the world is supposed to be. You also finally stated that God suffers with us and offers us his love and compassion and the strength to overcome. Why does God torment people like this? Why doesn't God prevent these horrible things from happening? Why doesn't God prevent young children from getting leukemia or other painful forms of cancer and not having the opportunity to live their full lives, for example? And that's it for my opening statement for now. Sorry, my cross-examination. Thank you.
All right, and then Gavin, if
you wanted to respond.
How many minutes was that?
Yep. So hold on, I'm trying to stop it. So you were at 4 minutes and 41 seconds, so just about 5 minutes. So Gavin, if you want to take, we'll say 5 or 6 minutes to respond to that, and then
you can go a bit longer if he likes. I'm okay with that.
Yep, and then I'll let Gavin get in his cross-examination. So as soon as you begin to speak, Gavin, I'll start the clock back up.
Sure. Thanks for that, Randall. That was what's known as the fallacy of dumping or shotgunning, because there's a lot of questions there. I couldn't write them down fast enough. Can you give me the first question and I'll give you my answer, and then the
Certainly,
second question, then I'll give you my answer.
You had quoted George Washington as, and yes. I hope I paraphrased the quote correctly, that it's impossible to run a government or a world without God. And I'm curious to know why you believe that. And
because God has prescribed, and this is important, he has prescribed objective morality. And that's why if we didn't have God and the prescription of objective morality, we couldn't run anything. So that would be the Christian response. So what was your second question, please?
Let's see. You had made some points about God being representing perfect justice and goodness, and
Yes.
let's see. And I think I'm curious why you resorted to quoting scientists rather than quoting your God, if your God is supposedly the almighty authority and everything.
How did I quote scientists?
Oh, you referred to them as scientists.
Yeah. How did I quote them?
No, you deferred to them, and you mentioned that they had somehow determined that God was the perfect justice and goodness, if I understood you correctly.
Hang on.
If I misunderstood you, I apologize.
Oh, that was my fourth point. So what is perfect justice and goodness? According to Washington, Jefferson, Jackson, and Grant, and by far the majority of scientists working at elite research institutes, it is the true, perfect Christian God. Because that's what they believe. That's what they believe.
Yeah, okay.
So according to them, the true Christian perfect God is the reason for perfect justice and perfect goodness.
So do you consider those scientists to be an authority on the matter?
According to me too, from my experience.
Okay. Do you consider those scientists to be a reliable authority on this matter?
I consider them to be far more intelligent than me, for sure.
Okay. Do you consider them to be a reliable authority on God?
Don't know them. I don't know them, but I would assume they would be reliable authorities. Yeah.
Okay. And you assume that because they are using a scientific approach in this?
No.
I'm trying to clarify.
I'm talking about scientists working at elite research institutes who are Christians, who subscribe to the Christian God, and there's a lot. It's very difficult to find a non-believer working in cutting-edge research institutes. I'm talking about the USA. That's all I know.
Okay, so I'm not sure why it would be relevant that scientists should be Christians in this case if they are making a scientific evaluation. Are you, by stating that they're Christians, implying that they may not be applying science correctly?
No, not at all. That's a strange thing to say. These are men that
I'm
are
trying to
working,
understand your position and why you referred to those scientists.
because scientists working in elite research institutes are right at the cutting edge of science and technology. The fact that they're Christians speaks a lot about Christianity, and that's all. That's all.
I think you and I disagree on this point.
They're not trying to prove God via science. They're working on different scientific projects, not concerned with God.
So I think you and I disagree on this point then. I don't think that the fact that scientists are Christians really says anything at all about Christianity. I think the fact that those scientists are Christians only talks about, gives us cause to reflect on the fact that they're Christians, and perhaps it tells us a bit about how they think about life in general. But that would be separate from the scientific work that they do. I don't think that really says anything about Christianity. So, but we have a different view on this one. You had, I'll just move on to the next point here. You mentioned evil and suffering in the world and the reasons for it, and I agree with you that those are some of the reasons, that laws of nature, bad luck, we are authors of our own misfortunes and other people's bad behaviors. I think these ones are, I agree with you that these are reasons for evil and suffering in the world, and evil, for lack of a better term, bad things that happen, I guess is what I would call it. But then you went on to a couple of interesting points. You said sometimes we suffer because the world is not the way it's supposed to be. And so my question to you there is, how is the world supposed to be? And this is my final question. Oh, no, there's
sure,
one more
sure.
after this. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah, no problem. According, the world now is not according to how God wanted the world to be, but this is a result of libertarian human free will. Because for true love to be real true love, it's got to come with freedom attached to it. There's got to be that possibility that mankind or individuals can turn their back on God and just refuse him, because that's what real love is all about. It's got to come with freedom, but freedom entails risk, right? So with freedom, there's always risk, and then that risk entails responsibility. So yeah, this world is not the world that God wants it to be, but that's not God's fault. We're culpable for that, because we're all seriously flawed human beings.
I want to get back to this libertarian free will aspect, because you did state that was its fault. But there's one more question I want to ask. You mentioned that God suffers with us and offers his love and compassion and the strength to overcome.
Yep.
Why does God do this? Why does not instead God use his great power and knowledge of everything to prevent things from happening, to prevent young children from getting bone cancer or leukemia or things like that rob them of full and fulfilling life?
Randolph and Gavin, real quick. Gavin, answer this question, and then we'll end this segment and then go into Gavin's cross examination.
Okay.
Sure. So you're asking, why doesn't God stop or intervene what seems to be...
why doesn't God just take care of things? And wouldn't that be a much more moral act of compassion, a much more caring and less cruel act of compassion?
No, because then libertarian free will is impinged on. And I mean, everybody would be fine with God intervening against the murderer about to murder somebody, or the thief about to steal something. Everybody would be fine with God intervening until God intervened on something that they wanted to do.
And there's God, who knows everything, who's omniscient. So he knew this was going to happen beforehand, and he allowed it to happen. He allowed immoral things to happen and didn't prevent them. And you're claiming God is moral. This is why I'm not on board with the idea that God is moral.
Well, one of the things that needs to be really understood is that God exists concurrently. That means at the same time. He exists in the past, and he exists in the present, and he exists in the future, all at the same time. So he can see future events and the possible outcomes from all angles, from all different angles. And there's great scriptural backing for this. So God sees the future in terms of what could happen, what should happen, what would happen, what might happen, all of these different outcomes. However, the outcome is solely dependent on our choice, on our human choice.
I know we've run out of time. All right. Well, the nice thing is we'll have an open dialogue here in a few minutes. You guys can take a deep dive back into that topic. But if you're familiar with the Atheist Roundtable, we love to joke about deep dives. So, Gavin, your time, sir, for cross examination. And as soon as you start, I will hit the timer, sir.
Sure. Thanks for those questions, Randolph. They were awesome. I know we didn't cover all of them, but maybe in the general discussion we can get back to some of them.
Oh yeah, I want to get back to libertarian free will and whatnot with you. But carry on. Let's hear your questions.
Sure. So you mentioned vicarious redemption by human sacrifice. Can you point to the scripture where God is supremely, divinely commanded human sacrifice?
I can't point to it directly, but what I can tell you is what I know of the story is that
Sure.
Jesus died on the cross. And
Yep.
that is he was in human form, so therefore that's the human sacrifice I was referring to.
Right. Okay. So apart from Christ's supererogatory act on the cross, that's the
Of dying for
only
our sins. Mm-hmm.
yeah. That's the only example of human sacrifice in the entire Bible.
I didn't say that. Is that what you're saying?
No, my question is so is Christ's supererogatory action on the cross, is that the only example of human sacrifice in the Bible?
Oh, I'm sure there's more, but that's the one that I was referring to. I don't think that this point is relevant to what I was saying about vicarious redemption and Jesus dying for sins.
Yeah, it actually is, because the way you phrased it made it sound like human sacrifice was part and parcel of the way God oversees his creation. So I'm going to hold your feet to the fire there, and maybe you can come back to me with other examples.
Well, I'll just say I was referring to that situation.
Okay. Now, the flood. What is your beef with the flood?
Genocide is wrong. And
Right.
that is mass genocide, multiple species all being killed by flooding the earth. With
Right.
the exception of only a few who got away on an ark. All the rest
Only
had
8.
to suffer and drown to death.
That's
I
right.
think that's
including
immoral.
including the babies. Don't forget the babies.
Yeah, I'm glad you remembered.
Yeah. So here's the thing. What you're doing now is committing the fallacy of presentism. You're looking back into the Old Testament times through the lens of 21st century glasses. And the A&E was a very, very different world back then. If God is the creator of the universe, and he's the fastest gun in the universe, for want of a better term, then he has the authority to do whatever he deems to be appropriate. If we don't agree with it, that's fine. But, that's just our subjective opinion. We're not God, and we don't have the mind of God. If we knew what God was thinking, we would be God. So, yeah, there's no dramas about the flood,
So
and a hell of a lot of people drowning.
what was God thinking?
Well, he wanted to start again. He wanted to start again with mankind.
Yeah, but he didn't start all over again because some got away on an ark.
He started with 8 people again.
Yeah, well, that's a continuation of those 8 people. That's not a whole new start.
Well, 8 people out of how many were
irrelevant.
wiped out? No, it's not. It's not irrelevant. It's perfectly
Well, if he wants
relevant.
to start all over, then he needs to wipe out absolutely everyone, which is also wrong.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to.
I think genocide is wrong. I'm sorry, I disagree with you. I don't care what the time was.
I'm not going to semanticate about things like that. Again, you're committing a fallacy of presentism, and that's a problem with looking back to the ancient Near East, looking back to the biblical times through the lenses of 21st century glasses.
So genocide was okay at that time, is what you're saying.
Whatever God does is totally good and totally just. So,
which brings us to my next point.
I'll go on to your next point. You talked about, it's a good discussion. I'm enjoying it. You talked about God carrying out Abraham carrying out God's command to sacrifice his son. What is your beef with that?
I think child abuse is immoral, and I consider that to be a form of child abuse with the potential to be lethal. Instructing somebody to kill children is immoral. It is wrong. It is horrific. It is atrocious, in my view.
However, God stopped Abraham from carrying out his divine command, didn't he?
Doesn't matter. He ordered it in the first place. That was wrong.
Absolutely, it matters. Hold on. Absolutely, it matters that God stopped Abraham from carrying out his divine command. That absolutely matters. That shows a merciful God.
That's a strange way to show mercy.
Gentlemen, real quick.
I
like that.
4 or 5 minutes left. Just let you know, 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay. Thanks, Austin.
And so what were the psychological ramifications for Isaac?
The Bible is silent about that.
That's right. From what we know of psychology, if a child goes through something as horrific as an attempt as a plan to carry out their murder by their own parent, that child's going to have a lot of problems psychologically. They're going to have they're not going to trust their father anymore, who tried to carry that out, I would suspect, at the very least. And there's probably we need to talk to a psychotherapist who deals with child behavior to find out more.
Again, there's multiple fallacies of presentism happening here, Randolph. If God stopped Abraham from carrying out his divine command, that has got to be a merciful God. That has got to be a merciful God.
No, I think it's a psychopathic God. It's a pretty sick thing to do.
Well, we can agree to disagree with that.
No, I don't agree to disagree. We just disagree.
We can agree to disagree. I don't agree with your position. You don't agree with my position. So we agree to disagree.
No, so I'm telling you your position's wrong. Yeah.
Well, you're not the final arbiter of all truth, Randolph. So again,
that's correct.
We can agree.
Now I agree with you. Now I agree with you.
We can agree to disagree. Now you talked about pregnancy. Why are women designed to endure the pain of pregnancy? Correct.
I'm a little disappointed that you're laughing about this.
About what?
You were laughing when you were talking about this. But I'll ignore that. I was pointing out that women endure excruciating pain when giving birth.
Correct.
Now, God designed everything. God designed people.
Yes.
Why didn't God design women to not endure so much pain if God is so merciful as you claim?
Because that is God's justice for Eve doing wrong in the Garden of Eden. God said to the woman, I will increase your trouble in pregnancy and your pain in giving birth. That is the reason for childbirth pain.
Because she ate a piece of fruit.
Because she disobeyed his command.
Wow, he's quite the authoritarian celestial dictator, isn't he? That sounds like a bully to me.
Well, when you are the creator of the universe and human life, and you're the fastest gun in the universe, you get to say what you want.
And you support this?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't.
Absolutely. Well, I do. Because the universe and life.
I think it's unethical.
Again, you're committing the fallacy of presentism. Here's the thing. I'm not going to spend much time on this because it's kind of off topic. The presence of the universe and human life either comes via a naturalistic means or an intelligent mind. Science has proven that human life doesn't come from naturalistic means. Therefore, the only alternative left is an intelligent mind, and that's what we call God.
Okay, so if I can pause there. Yep. So if I could pause there, that's actually probably a good segue. That way we can get the open dialogue going there. I think that was probably perfect. So first and foremost, gentlemen, thank you so much so far for going back and forth. And just so you guys know, we don't mind it getting a little spicy. Right, you're allowed to not agree. That's part of having having a quote unquote argument or a debate. We just want it to be respectful. Attack the beliefs or lack of belief, whatever. Just keep it away from the human, the individual.
I think neither of us has made any personal attacks or anything. So
actually that was. Yeah, that was actually my, again, kind of side swipe to the comment section to let them know that.
Oh, boy, what am I missing?
to keep it respectful, you're allowed to disagree and say, no, we don't disagree, but still respect the human. And I don't have time to go through everybody that's been in the chat so far, but thank you, everybody that's showed up for the debate tonight. Very much appreciate it. Yeah.
One thing I will say, if people do want to make personal attacks against me in the comments, I'll be happy to address them. I'm serious. Yeah.
Well, for you, when they're reposted, if you guys want to message those people, they'll be there for everybody to see. So you guys can handle that. But from our channel, our view, our stance, we're not gonna tolerate it. So, so
understand.
Thank you guys, everybody that's viewed in. And again, remember the super chats are there. So we're gonna have the open dialogue. Originally, guys, I know we said about 30 minutes or so because of time. I want to make sure we respect your guys' time and the viewers' time. I'm gonna put it at 20 minutes open dialogue. That way we can get a Q&A in, because I think there's gonna be a lot of questions. So we're going to go about 20 minutes, maybe a little over, depending on how it goes. But let's do this. Well, Randolph, you start at the top of everything, so I think it's only fair that you start at the top of this. So as soon as you start, I'll hit it. We'll go 20 minutes, and then I'll jump in probably about a minute before we need to end.
Okay, Gavin. I'll just have you continue to elaborate on what you were saying about all women being punishment for Eve's transgression for eating a piece of fruit. You were in the middle of a thought there.
God's judgment on Eve was for disobeying his command was that she would suffer trouble in pregnancy and pain in giving birth. I'm just reading straight out of scripture. So that was God's judgment.
And so that, of course, applies to all women after that, right?
Yes. Correct.
And so how is that fair to people who are born today, long after Eve is long gone? Why should we be held responsible and be punished for the acts of our ancestors that we had no say in, no control of, and no influence over, because we weren't even alive at that time?
Because it's part of human DNA. It's part of female human DNA for women today, in the Middle Ages, in the Dark Ages, in the 1st century, to suffer pain in childbirth. And that pain was part of God's judgment upon Eve for disobeying him.
I think God's judgment is immoral because he's punishing people who had nothing to do with her transgression. Forget the part. I'm leaving out the part where I think the punishment doesn't fit the crime here. I have a big problem with this. I think it's immoral to punish children of adults and offspring and adults who, let's say you've got an adult who commits a crime, and the judge comes along and says, okay, your child who you have in the future will also have to serve time in jail along with you for this crime you've committed. I think that's highly immoral. I think that's, and I don't see why there should be any special exception for God of Christianity to be able to do that and not be held to account for that and not be called immoral for it. But that's just my view.
Yeah, look, I hear what you're saying, and thanks for articulating it really well. But that's a very common objection from non-believers.
And why do you think it's a common objection?
Well, just let me continue with my thought, and then
Okay.
I shall explain. It shall unfold.
Okay,
A
sure.
common accusation. Yeah, a common accusation from the unbeliever against God is that God is terribly unjust and terribly egomaniacal, genocidal, arrogant, selfish, all these kinds of things. That God demands worship, and he punishes those who disagree, and he even condemns those who insult him. But here's the thing, right? A good and accurate response to this kind of objection is based on the concept of parenting. And I presume you've got children, Randolph.
Yep.
You'll know that good parents don't let their children insult or disobey them. This is not because the parents or you or me, I've got kids myself, it's not because we're egomaniacs, it's because we love our kids. We love our kids. Even if our kids don't grasp why we have rules for them, it's still for the kids' good. And I'll give you a really classic example. When you're taking a toddler into hospital to be tested for encephalitis, one of the ways they can detect encephalitis is by doing a spinal tap, which is a lumbar puncture, but it's extremely painful. Now, a tiny little toddler is not going to know the reasons why they're having to endure such pain, but it's for the greater good, because the test then demonstrates how much pressure is on the spinal cord, and if there's in fact any encephalitis in the spinal cord. So there's going to be circumstances when we, as human beings, can't understand all the details of God's justice and His goodness. Like the child, all we need to know is that mum or dad, as our parents, said no. There's nothing unreasonable about God's expectations of obedience, given that He's a loving Father who wants the best for His children, and He knows far more than we do. That is clear. God cannot be fairly labelled a moral monster because He's established rules that some particular person or some sections of society don't like or don't understand or just refuse to obey.
So
does that make sense?
The example of testing for encephalitis for a medical condition can be justified with a therapeutic justification. It is, if there's a therapeutic reason for it, then yes, something does have to be done in those cases. Or if your kid is running around and they're near the edge of a cliff, you just got to grab them and pull them away from there. If it looks like they're going to fall off, there's certain things that we have to do as parents. But when it comes to rules,
like kids.
rules,
sorry, like your toddler trying to jam the screwdriver into the electric socket. Yeah.
But with my kids, I encourage them to think for themselves, because that's what I think is in their best interest. If there's a problem with the rules or decisions that me and my wife have made, then we encourage them to tell us that we're wrong. And they do. And a couple of times we have been, and we've changed our decision because that's the way it should be. I don't see any such indication from God doing this with anybody who's subordinate to Him, supposedly. It seems to be, nope, those are the rules. You have to follow them. That's the way it is. And there's no going about it. And there's no talk back. There's no feedback. There's no growth mechanism in there. And to me, parenting is a two-way street. You're growing along with your children. It's not just your children growing. So I think that I don't see the male deity of Christianity as a parent, even though lots of people call Him a father. I see Him more as a celestial dictator who barks out orders and everybody just has to follow them.
So do you see something wrong, Randolph, with the two major commandments that are required by God? First one is love the Lord your God. Oh, I'm just explaining.
Oh, sorry. Okay, number one.
The first one, yeah. Apologies for the delay. I'm hanging on for dear life down here at the bottom of the world, if you're a flat earther. So the first one is love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, all your strength. And the second one is love your neighbor as you would love yourself. do you see anything wrong with these two commandments, these two principles?
Yeah. First of all, definitely. Both of those are as commands. Love to me is that's forcing love. It's requiring love, and love. It's a personal decision for people. We have the freedom to love who we want to love. It is if I get some commandment, love that person, whether I actually love them, it could be a whole separate thing. I can't comply with that command. I cannot love a deity who kills people, who commits genocide, who floods the planet, who orders fathers to kill their own sons, who orders circumcisions, non-therapeutic circumcisions. It's an amputation of foreskin. It's also vile and horrific. And all these other horrible transgressions and these awful, immoral things. I can't love a deity that does that. No. So I can't, I have huge objections to that first commandment of love the Lord, love that God. The second one was love thy neighbor, or treat thy neighbor as you would treat yourself. Maybe you can repeat the second one for me, please.
Oh, the second one is love your neighbor as you would love yourself.
And I disagree with that too, because there are some neighbors that we don't get along with, and some neighbors that we get along with a lot better. I have to take it on a case-by-case basis. And
Wow.
it may not be appropriate to love them as I love myself.
Wow.
It's subjective.
Wow.
I do think those things are subjective. Now, I want to get along with my neighbors, so I will be respectful with them. And I do get along with all my neighbors. But I don't love them as I love myself.
Do you think do you think the world would be better if the majority or everybody tried to live out those two commands, love your neighbor as you would love yourself, and love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, all your spirit?
No, because I think the first one leads to a false sense of love for people who fear that deity. And so they're loving out of fear. And I don't think that that's psychologically healthy. And the second one is not going to work because every person's different. And some people are deserving of more care and others are deserving of less. I think a basic modicum of respect for every person is important.
Who decides who's worthy of more love and more care and more respect?
That is the challenge with society, isn't it? God certainly hasn't been providing any clarity on this. He's just a very black and white, love everyone the same kind of thing, which is a very King Solomon compromise kind of approach. It's not a win-win style approach.
That's not my experience of God. My experience of God is that we should go out of our way to love the poor, the marginalized, the oppressed, the sick, the needy, the rejects of society.
Mm-hmm.
That's my understanding. That's my understanding of God's goodness and His justice and His love and His truth.
So I guess Isaac was go ahead.
So I was just going to comment. You were saying that that commandment, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your spirit, is based on fear.
For many people.
That again. Yeah, sure. I hear what you're saying, but that again is a fallacy of presentism. The Bible says, "Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." That's where wisdom comes from. It's from fearing the Lord. But it's not a fear. It's not a fear like, let's say you run into a 7-foot tall Hell's Angel in a dark alley at 3 a.m. in the morning. It's not that kind of fear, all right? It's a respect and a reverence. Respect and reverence it's a healthy state of mind to be in. That's the Christian. That's the Christian worldview. That's the Christian worldview. Yes, the Christian ideology. Yeah.
This is a very strange way to define the word fear. So you're saying that it's a sense of respect. Yeah, I will have respect for authorities. If
Well, it's
those
a sense of
authorities,
respect.
if those authorities are deserving of respect.
Mm.
And I think when people talk about being afraid of being sent to hell for not complying, for not believing, there's an edict in the Bible under, I'd have to look it up, but I could very easily here, that states that anybody who does not believe in God is to be put to death. So all atheists are to be put to death. It commands genocide. And so, if people believe that, and they believe that other transgressions that they commit, like lying with another man as if lying with a woman, they're going to go to hell and things like that, then that's an act of fear if they're complying with it. They've been bullied into it. That is not psychologically healthy. It is not an honest way to live, and it is not a healthy way to live, in my view.
Sure, I hear you. Do you not, Randolph, do you not agree with the core foundations of the Ten Commandments?
I think the Ten Commandments are ridiculous. I think most of them are way off base. But if you like, we could go and review them, and I'd be happy to give you my reactions to them.
Yeah.
You want to pull out the King James Bible?
Anything you want.
Which Bible do you want to use?
I don't
King
care.
James is pretty popular.
I don't care. You choose.
Well, let's look at the King James Bible then. That's pretty popular.
Yeah. Right.
And what I'll do while I'm just looking that up is, okay, I think I'm just going to quickly tell you that other passage I was talking about that says kill all the atheists, just so that you have it, because I think that will be interesting for you to look at. It is, let me see here. Okay, so it's under 2 Chronicles, chapter 15, verse 13, and it states, that whosoever would not seek the Lord God of Israel shall be put to death, whether small or great, whether man or woman. So that's 2 Chronicles 15:13, in case our audience is curious about what I was referring to there as well. So I have the King James Bible. Go ahead.
Yeah, what's the verses? It's the 2nd chapter of Chronicles. What's the verses, Randolph?
Chapter 15, verse 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the one I was referring to earlier.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, gotcha.
Okay. But I think for the 10 Commandments, I'm looking at Exodus 20, and it says, and God spake all these words, saying, this is the King James Version. The first commandment is that he is the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Okay. Thou shalt have, that's not really a commandment. It's just him bragging about himself. Okay. I guess the first commandment is thou shalt have no other gods before me.
Yeah. So what's wrong with that?
It's dictating, it's limiting, attempting to limit what people can believe. I'm an advocate for freedom. So people, I feel, should have the freedom to believe what they want to believe. So if they want to believe in a different deity that came before goddess or God, before the Christian God, that's their right. There are polytheists still around today. There are people from older religions still around today. So, so I disagree with that commandment because I think it violates people's freedom of belief.
Sure. Do you think freedom comes with risk, and risk entails responsibility?
Depends on the scenario, but very often, in many cases, it sure does.
Wow. I don't think you'd find many opponents that would say freedom doesn't come with risk, and risk doesn't entail responsibility. I think there'd be very few people that would subscribe to that.
I can easily think of many scenarios where freedom does not come with risk.
Well, here's a problem. Here's a problem. You're not liking the first commandment because you're saying it's not allowing people, human beings, mere mortals, freedom. Is that right?
That's not exactly what I said. It's close.
So,
what I said is it's oppressive. It limits freedoms. It says it limits people. It attempts to limit people by telling people that they can't believe in any deities before him.
But how? Because we still have free will. People can choose not to worship God.
Okay, what's the point of the commandments? What is the point of the commandments then?
Do you think the point of the commandments might have been for the benefit of the Israelites?
I don't know. I don't think so, because they're oppressive and limiting people's freedoms. What if they want to believe in a deity before that?
Well, God is perfect, God is just, and God is always good. God never does anything by mistake or by accident. So if his first command is, worship no God but me, there's a reason for that.
So if God does nothing by mistake, doesn't make any errors, as you just stated, then why did God need to start over with by flooding the planet, as you had stated?
Yeah, well, okay, we're not gonna go down that foxhole because I want to concentrate on the commandments, right?
All right.
So the first commandment, worship no God but me. But you're not cool with that because you feel it's limiting our freedom. Is that right?
I feel it's attempting to limit the freedoms of people who want to believe in other deities before God.
Well, the fact that we have libertarian free will doesn't limit man's freedom at all. People can choose not to believe in God. It's their choice.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if they want to believe in a different deity before him.
They can choose to do that.
The commandment says otherwise.
That's right. It's a commandment.
Yeah, so it's a commandment. It's an edict. So it conflicts with freedom of belief. So that's my objection to the first one. You want to know the next one?
No. There will be no gish galloping.
I'm not gish galloping. I'm just cognizant of the time here. If you want to go through all the commandments with me, I can tell you why I object to them, because I thought that's what we were going to do.
Yeah, but yes, but hold on. Here's the problem. This kind of stuff, it's not explained simply and easily. All right, we need to focus on these things and really hone in on them. Okay. God said to the Israelites, "You will worship no other gods but me." Now, do you think he said that to them and gave them that edict for their benefit or not?
I don't know what's in God's mind, but when I look at the edict, it seems to me that it's limiting their freedom of belief, and I think that that's wrong. That's why I disagree with it.
Gentlemen, I gave a couple extra minutes there because I know you guys were having a good conversation there, but again, I want to the best of our ability, stay on course here. So we'll move on to the 5-minute closing statements, and I'm gonna pull my notes up here.
I'm still hoping to go through the other 9 commandments there, but
and we might have a little bit of a surprise for those that want to hear. We'll announce it in a minute. We're trying to get some things together here on the back end while you guys are talking, but we'll do that. And once again, everybody that's viewed tonight, you're on here tonight, thank you so very much for coming and hanging out at the Atheist Roundtable. We appreciate it. And Randolph and Gavin, thank you guys. It's been, there's been the disagreements, and it's been very obvious, but you guys have been very respectful and very cordial. And you guys have been an example of what these conversations should look like. We're allowed to disagree and keep it cool, keep it calm.
It sounds like we're going to need a part 2 to cover all these commandments.
But I was going to follow up and say, what you guys have, the example that you guys have gave tonight, you guys are more than welcome to debate here at the Atheist Roundtable anytime you guys want. You just hit me up. And we'll coordinate it. We'll get it put together, and you guys are always welcome. This has been awesome. So before we do that, for those that are in the comment section, I know there's been a lot of questions that popped up, and I've tried to, the ones I've seen, I've told them to kind of hold off till the end. So now's your time. Start putting the questions in the comment section, and if you want to make sure that your question is at the top and is prominent, super chat is there. That'll make sure that we see it. We can get up on the screen and make sure that that's front and center. But we have the 5-minute closing statements, like I said, and Randolph, you have the first 5 minutes, and I have the clock ready. As soon as you start speaking, sir, I'll hit the clock.
Okay, so what I'm seeing with the male deity of Christianity is known as God, or Yahweh, or Jesus. There's different names for him. We started delving into some commandments here, and right off the bat, I see impositions on people's freedom. So there's a big idea about we have free will, and yet there's this scary, big, powerful deity who's interfering and telling us what we can and can't believe, what we can and can't do. He's killing people. He's doing other things like that. And to me, if somebody's interfering with your freedoms, that is immoral. They should not be interfering with your freedoms. They can make suggestions, but if they're going to order you what to do, stand up to it. Be free. Enjoy your freedom. You have that right. And that is one of the big problems with it. And I'll just quickly review the things that were problematic that I found that I mentioned at the beginning is the global flood, killing almost everybody on all life on the planet. I consider that to be immoral. Absolving people of their sins. Jesus died for your sins, known as vicarious redemption. That's immoral because it doesn't actually absolve someone of their crimes. All it does is take away the punishment. And what kind of a demotivator is that? They've got a chance, maybe they can get away with it again. Who knows what they'll think? But it certainly doesn't seem to be able to stop them. Abraham being ordered to kill Isaac by God, that is one of the most horrific things I've ever heard as well. Anybody who orders a parent to kill their own child is definitely immoral on many, many fronts. It's child abuse, it's murder, it's, again, an imposition on their free will because it's telling them what to do instead of leaving it to themselves to decide what to do, raising their child and whatnot. Pregnancy. Women endure excruciating pain during childbirth. And my interlocutor here, Gavin, has made it clear that he sees that as God punishing all women for the transgressions of Eve, who merely ate a piece of fruit. And I think in a normal kind of way, what I see in the courts going on here in Canada is when somebody's been charged with a crime, on their first offense, they're usually very often given a second chance. The judge will, depending on the nature of the crime, of course, but they'll often be told, okay, look, the judge will say, I'm going to give you a chance here because I think you can get your life turned around if you do this and this. But keep in mind, if you get caught doing this again, you're not going to get this kind of second chance again. You're not going to get a third chance. You will be going to prison. And that actually works. And there's a lot of people who've been able to turn their lives around because they got that second chance here. Looks to me like Eve did not get that second chance. It was ruined for her in the first part. And it was the ramifications being imposed on all women after that throughout history is hugely cruel and immoral to women, and so that even hits me as being sexist. Again, why should someone like you or me be punished for the crimes of our ancestors from long ago who weren't alive when we were born? It doesn't make sense. It's not moral. Anyway, that's to me, I've not heard compelling justification for why God is moral. It just sounds to me like Gavin is very much enthralled with the idea of who God is and is trying to find excuses for these immoral acts. The idea that the creator has full authority to do whatever they want with their inventions and creations is also flawed for a number of reasons. And one of the most compelling ones is just because you create something does not necessarily give you the right to do things to it. I could create, for example, a nuclear fission reactor in my yard if I knew how and I had the parts. That wouldn't give me the right to do with it what I wanted. I have to follow regulations. Or somebody could hire me to create something, and that creation would belong to them in most contracts. So I wouldn't have the right to do with it what I want. That's up to them because I got paid to do that. So there are different examples that can be pulled out to defeat that point of view as well. I thank everybody for listening, and thank you, Oz, for moderating. Did I go over time this time?
Nope, you had about 15 seconds to spare, so good
Shall
job.
we count 10 for the commandments? No, I'm kidding.
Thank you, Randolph. And before we get to Gavin, guys, if we are going to host a little after party and be able to open up this dialogue, so obviously our guests for tonight are, obviously invited to that. But if you want to be a part of it, it is limited. StreamYard limits us to how many folks we have on there. But if you do want to be a part of it, just go to Twitter. Our handle is TART Live and at TART Live, and you can hit us up there, and we'll get you links and all that, and we'll continue the discussion there. But Gavin, you have 5 minutes for your closing statement. As soon as you start speaking, sir, I'll hit the clock.
Thank you, Gavin.
Thanks, Randolph. Awesome. I really enjoyed this. Randolph, if you want to do a part 2, I'm really keen. It's funny how we started looking at the 10 Commandments and we couldn't even get past the first one. But, that's how it is sometimes. This was a good discussion. It was done with honesty, and it was done with respect. And I wholeheartedly agree with Austin that it is possible to disagree about someone's position, but there's no point. There's no need to be disagreeable about it. And I think Randolph and I have demonstrated that tonight. We both have different worldviews, and this is the perfect place to discuss these worldviews. We might not change the mind of the other person, but at the very least, we're going to come away with a better understanding of how, well, at least I'm going to come away, and I hope Randolph comes away with a better understanding of how I view the world. I heard multiple fallacies of presentism from Randolph, which is, just for clarification, it's looking back to the days and times of the Old Testament through the glasses of 21st century living and morality and the way we do things in the 21st century. There was also a bit of the fallacy of shotgunning and dumping. It was okay. There was an attempt at goalpost shifting, but however, that got pretty much jumped on, which is good. Randolph was very keen on the idea of impinging on human freedom. We all have libertarian free will. Every one of us has libertarian free will. We can choose to turn our back on God if we so desire. It's totally up to us. It's a free choice. Human beings actually get a second chance. Randolph talked about Eve not getting a second chance with God's judgment on pain during childbirth. Every human being gets a second chance. And the second chance is by accepting the atoning blood of Jesus Christ and accepting his free gift of salvation. That's got to be stressed. So I don't have much more to say. I'm sure there's got to be a part 2 because I really enjoy this kind of thing. I enjoyed my interlocutor's clarity. And for me, being so many miles away at the bottom of the earth, clinging on for dear life, if you're a flat earther, which I'm not, I thought it was a neat debate. I'll finish with a quote. Oh, first of all, can I put just a plug in for an after show that's going to be on Praise I Am That I Am's channel, where he's probably going to destroy me for not saying the right things. But anyway, I'll finish with this. And this is from a letter from John Adams to Benjamin Rush, dated 2nd February 1807. God's Bible contains the most profound philosophy, the most perfect morality, and the most refined policy that was ever conceived upon the earth. So all I wanted to say is thank you very, very much to all the audience, to you, Austin, and especially to you, Randolph. I hope we can do it again.
I look forward to doing this again. I look forward to having a conversation about the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
With you.
Yeah. Same here, Randolph.
We'll let Oz finish up and get questions from our wonderful audience at this point. I'm not going to disagree with your closing statement here because I don't think that would be fair. But Oz, where did you go? Where did our moderator disappear? There he is. We got worried about you. We thought maybe you got struck by lightning for hosting this or something.
I got stuck in the interwebs.
They get a bit crowded at times. It's all those cats.
No, thank you guys again. Great conversation, and I totally 100% agree that we're deserving of a round 2 of that, and I think it's well deserved there. So we're going to get into the Q&A here. So for those that have questions on there, give us 1 second. We'll start pulling those up. But one last time,
the Q&A is my favorite part of these things.
Yeah, this is fun. Absolutely. So just one reminder, if you go to Twitter, if you want to be part of the discussion afterwards, go to Twitter, and our Twitter handle is @TartLive, and send us a message. We'll get you links and everything. But since you're already there and you're part of the tweet world, make sure you follow us, and that way you can tag us and message us and all that anytime. And we'd love to have you there. We put out a lot of great content there as well. So let's get into some questions. Rage says that my hat game makes him jealous. I can tell you, I can tell you where to find them. So first question here on the screen, question for Gavin. How does he know he is worshiping the correct God? There's thousands of gods out there. What if the Muslims are right?
The Muslims aren't right. I'm worshipping the one and true God based on the evidence, based on general revelation and personal revelation.
I would just like to say I agree with the first sentence that the Muslims aren't right.
Thanks, Randolph.
Well,
you got partial support from me.
And finally, you guys agree to agree. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, stop it.
Amen. That proves there's a God. That proves there's a God, Austin.
I don't agree to agree.
All right. Did God flood the earth or take a mulligan on his first creation? Gavin, I assume that's geared towards you there.
Take a what? A what?
Did God flood the earth or take a mulligan on his first creation?
I just looked up mulligan. It says a mulligan is a second chance to perform an action, usually after the first chance went wrong through bad luck or blunder. It's best known in golf, apparently.
Right.
Right, okay. Yeah, well, God flooded the earth because he realized the heart of man was just intolerably wicked. So he wanted to wipe them out and chose, in his omniscience, the most righteous of people that were left, which would have been Noah and his family.
I just have a quick question. It's about Dave Delafear's, who just asked that question about their picture. Is that a parrot holding a fluorescent light bulb?
Sure appears to be that way.
I wish I could see it. I wish I could see it.
Next question for Randolph from Passagone. I can never get this out correctly. Presuppositionally, hypothetically, let's say the Christian's God does exist. Who would God answer to for his alleged immoral actions and inactions from your perspective?
Well, if I was to meet that God, they would have to answer to me, of course. I would expect that they would have to answer to every single person.
Okay, interesting answer. And again, if you guys would be, Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. How about it?
Sure. God's not answerable to anything or anyone. He's non-contingent, so he's not answerable to anyone.
So he's a celestial dictator.
No, I don't think so.
Then he needs to be accountable and transparent about it. I guess he'd be transparent because nobody can see him. But
Hard to see someone who exists in the past, the present, and the future, Randolph.
And Gavin, another one here for you. Did all religious people go to heaven before Jesus was born?
No. According to Scripture, no. There's an event coming up. It's the most marketed, the most advertised, the most famous event in the history of mankind, called the Last Judgment. And that's where we're all going to be judged. We're either going to be judged as righteous or unrighteous. Don't be judged as unrighteous. That's not a good place to be.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about Christmas for a minute. You threw me off. Sorry. How does Randolph solve moral non-cognitivism? I can never say that word right either.
Non-cognitive moral. Let's just see. What does he mean by non-cognitivism? So non-cognitivism is the meta-ethical view that ethical sentences do not express proposition or statements and thus cannot be true or false. I don't consider morality to be something that's black and white. So I think the question will need to be more specific. What moral problem needs to be solved in a manner that's black and white? Like, give me an example of something that can clarify the question. I'm having trouble with this question. I'm trying to understand it. But I can say morality just seems to me something that's definitely not just a black and white thing. There's a whole degree of a spectrum of, is this more right or less right, or more wrong or less wrong, etc. In Canada, okay, you go ahead and read it.
No, I was going to say, there was another question, just real quick. They said, did Randolph break into Kent Hovind's closet, or did he mail that shirt to him?
I saw this shirt in the store one day and I really liked it, so I got it. And that was before I knew that Kent Hovind was wearing these kinds of shirts. So, okay. Yeah. So there's no direct connection there. And I think Simply Secular had a question. We don't want to skip that. That was just on the screen a moment ago.
Yep. We'll do this one, then we'll go back to the... Can I comment
on that non-cognitive question?
What did you say, Gavin? I'm sorry.
Could I comment on that non-cognitivism question, please?
Yeah, sure.
Can you run it by me again, please, Austin?
Can we pull that the non-cognitivism question back up, because I can't remember exactly how it was
worded. Go back 2 questions. Yeah. Just before Simply Seculars.
And while we're working on that, remember, if you want to be part of the conversation after the debate, part of this is over, go to Twitter and at TART Live and hit us with a message, and make sure you follow us. If you don't follow us, you're not allowed on the show. No, I'm just kidding, but you should do that.
You're so oppressive.
And Gavin, the question was, how do you solve moral non-cognitivism?
It's from Praise That I Am.
Sure. Yeah, I knew it was from him. I knew it was from him. It's not a gotcha kind of question. Non-believers, they can't solve non-cognitive questions because they have no grounding. They have no grounding for their morality their logic and ideas of right from wrong, this kind of thing. There's no grounding that predicates their decisions. Yeah, they can't predicate their decisions on anything.
Okay.
So
and
I got to say, I got to push back against that, because that hits me as being an attempt at vilifying atheists. That may not be your intention, but to say that atheists don't have a grounding on morality and right and wrong and whatnot, to me, that's just plain wrong. We do have groundings. Our groundings are our own ideas on the matter, our own thoughts, our own pontification, philosophical ponderings on it, and our peers and other systems like the veil of ignorance concept from John Rawls in his theory of justice publication and whatnot. So I do disagree with your answer.
great.
Did I
And if you
say
guys wanna write that down-
non-believers or atheists? Did I say non-believers or atheists?
They're the
I
same
meant
thing.
to say non-believers.
That's the same thing.
Yeah, I know they are. Randolph.
Yep.
But I actually dislike the word atheist. I find it quite a harsh word to say.
There's nothing harsh about it. It's
Yeah.
a classification of not believing in deities. No,
Well,
It's-
so is saying a non-believer.
it's exactly
So is saying
synonymous
a
with
non-believer.
non-believer in deities. It's synonymous with that.
All right, so we'll get on, and again, we'll continue this conversation afterwards. So let's keep getting through the viewers' questions. Next one: would a Buddhist be allowed into heaven if they do not believe in God? Gavin, we'll let you go first. Yeah, Christian God, I would believe.
Yeah, sure. That's not a question that I can answer, Austin. That's between the individual and God. So yeah, I can't put myself in a position of saying yes or no, because I'm not God.
I would quip. Why would a Buddhist want to be there?
Next question, Randolph. Can I use the same tap hole every year, or must I place a new tap hole in my maple to get my syrup?
Well, it depends on the condition of the tap hole and the health of the tree in question. So you'd have to see how it's doing in the next year, and then you'd be able to make that determination.
All right, perfect. And we'll do one more question here, and then we will we'll keep rocking and rolling. Sean, one of our favorite viewers and mods. Oz got to make fun of someone else's shirt for a change. Damn right, Sean. Damn right.
I guess that was me. Sean's wearing an interesting shirt too. You might get a different one here, Oz.
And then the last one, question part 2 from Pastor John for Randolph. If he, I assume he means God, if he answers to you, as you said, describe how God would be sovereign. How would he still be God if the creator is held accountable by his own creation? Where is his authority?
That's a great question. Where is his authority? And I've already pointed out in my closing statement why I think that a creator is not necessarily the authority over their creations. So that's a question that needs to be answered. Just to claim that a deity has authority is not sufficient.
Right. And now
an answer?
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Good question. God is non-contingent, so he's not answerable to anybody, particularly us mere mortals. All of us are seriously flawed human beings. And as I said before, there's only 2 ways the universe and human life has come about. One is by naturalistic means, or the other way is by an intelligent mind. Now, science has proven that the universe and life does not arise from naturalistic means. So that only leaves one left, which is an intelligent mind, which is what Christians call the Christian God.
Okay. All right. And Randolph, I think you wanted to say something.
Oh yeah, to Paul Camish's comment, he's saying that he did loads of super chat. I just want to say thanks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. And one thing for everybody, there's the chats go on there and they do pop up at the top, but if time goes by, if there's too much time goes by, they do disappear where we can't see them anymore. We don't have, they're gone. We don't have access to them. So I apologize if we couldn't get to them. It definitely wasn't anything that was intentional. We always try to get to those first. But again, gentlemen, thank you very, very much for hanging out with us tonight, and great debate, great conversation, respectful, and awesome. And we will line up a round two, so to speak, and get you guys back on here. We appreciate the civility and the respect that you guys showed. Anything you guys want to say? Because I know we probably have some viewers here that weren't here in the beginning. Randolph, you've kind of been first to go for the night, so we'll do it one last time. Where do they find you? YouTube, Twitter, that kind of thing?
Okay, so you can find me at the Canadian Atheists that I founded, which is a national organization in Canada that aims to push back against vilification of atheists and atheism, and to bring us to a point of normalization of atheism in society, because we believe that it's normal not to believe things, and that is the default as how we're born. The website for the Canadian Atheists is www.canadianatheists.ca, and you can also reach me on Twitter. My handle is Randolph828. That's Randolf 828. I have a YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/Randolf Richardson, fully spelled out. Remember, my name's spelled with an F, not a PH. And there's also the new upcoming live call-in program for by myself and Neil, the 604 Atheist. You can find out more about it at the www.truenorthtalk.ca website. Thank you very much for having me on, and Gavin, to have this conversation debate. And I look forward to the next one. You guys have a great show going here.
Absolutely. And thank you. And thanks again for being on, Randolph. And Gavin, anything that you would like to say in closing before we jump off?
I just want to springboard off what Randall was saying. Thanks so much for having us on. Thanks for the great moderation. You run a very professional outfit. I can't speak highly enough of you. And like Randolph, I'm salivating already for round two. So, let's coordinate together and have another go. Thanks very much, Austin. I appreciate it. Thanks, Randolph. Keep warm,
Thanks,
brother.
Gavin. It was a pleasure to meet you.
All right. Well, one last time. Thank you guys. And again, go to Twitter if you want to be a part of the discussion afterwards. If you go to Twitter, it is at TART Live is the handle, and send us a message. And Pasta Mike will make sure you get everything you need to be a part of it. And in closing, everybody that was in the chat, thank you so very much for hanging out with us tonight and chopping it up with us in the chat. And we will see you tomorrow night with the Atheist Pastor from the Down Under.
God bless all.